Isiamaka is pregnant with her 15th baby, but had buried 14 of them in 10 years. Each grave was smaller than the last thing she expected to bury in her lifetime. She was pregnant again. Her hands rested on her belly as she sat outside her compound, watching other women carry their children on their backs. Those children ran and played and grew tall. Her own children never made it past their first steps. Always when they were about to walk, they would fall sick, then they would die. The twins had been the worst. 2 babies at once, double the hope, double the loss. They died within days of each other, both reaching for her hands to stand up, both falling back down forever. Her husband, Obiora, no longer smiled at her the way he used to. He had grown quiet over the years. His family whispered that perhaps he should take another wife, one who could give him children that lived. Isiamaka heard the whispers but said nothing. What could she say? They had done everything. They visited the old priest, who performed cleansing rituals. They traveled to see a powerful medicine man who said it was an Ogbanje, a wicked spirit child who kept coming back to torment them. The spirit would be born, enjoy their love and care, then leave just when they got attached. Over and over again. For this 15th pregnancy, they performed the biggest ritual yet. Sacrifices were made, incantations were spoken. Her body was marked with protective chalk. Charms were buried at the 4 corners of their compound. Isiamaka gave birth to a baby girl. She was afraid to love her, afraid to hope, but hope is stubborn and it grew anyway. The months passed slowly. Every night felt like waiting for bad news. The baby grew fat and healthy. She smiled and laughed and reached for things. Then came the day she pulled herself up, standing on shaky legs. Isiamaka held her breath. Obiora held his breath. The whole compound seemed to hold its breath. The baby took one step, then another. Isiamaka has lost 14 children and has given birth to the 15th child that may or may not survive. The baby walked. Nwamaka, she named her. It means child is precious. For 2 days, everything seemed fine. Nwamaka took more steps. She laughed when she fell on her bottom. She was alive and walking, and Isiamaka began to believe that maybe, just maybe, the curse was broken. But Isiamaka barely slept. She watched Nwamaka through the night, counting her breaths, checking her temperature with her palm. Every small cough made her jump. Every moment of silence terrified her. On the 3rd day after Nwamaka walked, it happened. The baby's body grew hot. Her eyes became dull. She stopped eating. She lay limp in Isiamaka's arms, her small chest rising and falling with difficulty. Isiamaka recognized it immediately. This was how it always began. This was how they all died. She started to cry, then to wail. The sound came from deep inside her, a sound that had lived in her bones for 10 years. She carried Nwamaka outside and sat on the ground in front of her compound, rocking back and forth, begging the gods to take her instead. Take her life and spare her child. People gathered around, neighbors, family. They looked at her with pity. They had seen this before, 14 times before. They already knew what would happen next. Some of the women began to cry with her. The men shook their heads. Obiora stood apart, his face empty of expression, as if he had used up all his grief long ago. Then something broke inside Isiamaka. She stood up suddenly, still clutching Nwamaka to her chest. Without a word, she began to run. Obiora shouted her name. People tried to grab her, but she was too fast. She ran like someone being chased by death itself. Some people ran after her, calling her to stop, to come back. Where was she going? What was she doing? She ran toward the stream. Some thought she meant to drown herself and the baby. They ran faster, shouting. But when Isiamaka reached the place where the road divided into 3 directions, she took the path that did not lead to the stream. The people stopped running. They knew where that path led. The great Akala Shrine. They shouted for her to come back. No one went to Akala Shrine. It was forbidden, dangerous. People said that whoever entered that place never came back alive. The priestess of Akala was not like other priestesses. She served the old gods, the ancient ones who demanded truth and gave justice without mercy. But Isiamaka did not stop. She did not look back. Fear of death meant nothing to a woman who had already died 14 times. She ran until she reached the shrine, a small dark hut surrounded by carved wooden figures and old palm fronds. She fell at the feet of the priestess. The priestess of Akala was old, her face marked with ritual scars, her eyes like deep wells that could see everything hidden. She looked down at Isiamaka and the dying baby without surprise, as if she had been waiting for them. Isiamaka begged. She pleaded. She offered her own life if the priestess would save Nuamaka. The priestess said nothing. She simply pointed to a large calabash filled with water. "Look inside," the priestess said. "See the truth." Isiamaka looked into the water. At first, she saw only her reflection. Then the water began to move, to shift, and images appeared like memories rising from a deep place she had tried to forget. Isiamaka was 18 years old when her father brought home a new wife. Her mother had given him only daughters, 3 girls, no sons. In their village, this was considered a failure. The new wife was younger, prettier, and full of promises. When the new wife became pregnant and gave birth to a baby boy, everything changed. Isiamaka's father acted as if his first family no longer existed. All his love, all his attention, all his resources went to the new wife and the baby boy. Isiamaka and her sisters became invisible. Their mother's face grew tired and sad. The compound that once felt like home became a place of pain. The anger grew inside young Isiamaka like a disease. The jealousy ate at her. She hated that baby boy who had stolen her father. She hated being worthless simply because she was born female. She hated watching her mother fade into nothing. One day, the new wife went to the market. She left the baby boy sleeping in the room. The compound was quiet. Isiamaka stood outside for a long time, her heart pounding. Then she walked into that room. The baby lay there, peaceful and sleeping. He looked so small, so innocent, but all Isiamaka could see was the pain he had caused. She picked up the small pillow. Her hands shook. Then she pressed it down over his face and held it there until he stopped moving. The new wife returned home singing. Then she found her son. The scream that came from her throat was not human. She knew immediately that this was not natural. Someone had killed her child. She came outside, stood in front of the compound, and her voice rang out with words that burned through the air like fire. "Whoever killed my son, their own children will never pass the age my son died. They will never take more steps than he took. My pain will be their pain. My loss will be their loss forever." The baby had died just before he could walk. Isiamaka pulled back from the calabash. Her whole body shook. She had buried that memory so deep that she had almost forgotten it completely. But the gods do not forget. The curse did not forget. "I deserve to die," she whispered. "I deserve everything that happened to me." The priestess looked at her with those ancient eyes. "There is only one way to break this curse," she said. "You must receive forgiveness from the woman who laid it. Without her forgiveness, Isiamaka felt her heart sink. What mother would forgive someone who murdered her child? It was impossible. But she looked down at Nuamaka, her 15 baby, growing weaker in her arms. She had no choice. She left the shrine and ran to her father's compound. Her father had died years ago, but his second wife still lived there. Isiamaka burst into the compound and fell at the woman's feet, confessing everything. The woman's face turned to stone. Isiamaka knelt outside the compound for 3 days. Through the rain, through the sun, she did not eat, did not sleep. She begged and cried and pleaded, while Nuamaka burned with fever back in her husband's village. On the 3rd day, the woman came outside. Her face was wet with tears. She looked at Isiamaka, at the broken woman who had carried grief for 10 years. She placed her hand on Isiamaka's head. "I forgive you," she said. "May your child live." The fever broke that same hour. Nuamaka opened her eyes and began to cry, a strong, healthy cry. She lived. Isiamaka returned home to her daughter. She told Obiora and his family that a powerful priestess had broken the curse. She did not tell them the full truth. She could not bear for them to know what she had done, what she had caused. Nuamaka grew. She walked and ran and played. She grew tall and strong, but Isiamaka carried the guilt like a stone in her chest. Every time she looked at her living daughter, she thought of the 14 graves behind her compound. She thought of her baby brother, dead by her hands. She thought of all those years of suffering that she had brought upon herself. She had her miracle, but some gifts come with a weight that never gets lighter. Forgiveness had been given, but forgetting was impossible. Isiamaka lived with the knowledge of who she had been and what she had done. It was a burden she would carry until her own last breath.